Welcome to the Witchy Work Wishes podcast, a place to find your weekly inspiration for bringing your personal witchcraft practice into your business, work, and office. Welcome to Witchy Work Wishes. Here we are on episode number 99. Can you believe it? 99, which means the big celebration, the big milestone, and the big giveaway party is next week. I have so much fun stuff planned for us, but I'm going to keep that on the back burner. Today's episode does actually lead us into one of the new products that I'm launching next week, so it is the perfect gateway for the big party. First, some witchy things I did over the weekend. And oh my gosh, you know what I did? I moved the fire pit again. Yes, one more time. So remember I had it set up kind of, far away from the house at first. And that first time I went to use it after moving, it just felt too exposed. I thought maybe it had to do with the moon phase being, that dark moon stage. So I just stopped being outside that one night. Then I tried it again a couple weeks ago and, it was nice. I was able to do some fireworkings in it and I really enjoyed my evening by the fire. But then this past weekend, I moved it. The whole space moved a little bit closer to the house, but I found a little space that felt slightly tucked away and safer, like purposeful. So not just, out in the middle of the yard, but anyways, I made it more of an actual space, like a little mini living room of such. And oh boy, what a game changer. I instantly felt better. I was way more relaxed and I was able to dive into my fire magic even more. So lovely little change that had a huge impact on me. I'll say the biggest part of my weekend really was getting everything ready for this big 100 episode that's coming up next week. And I took time to look at witchy work wishes, what I have done, what I am doing now, and what I want to bring to the platform moving forward. Now, this happened to coincide perfectly with the dark moon stage of our beautiful moon, which I really do like to work with. Now, Monday was a new moon, and I used that energy to, start fresh and focus on the new journey that I am taking with Witchy Work Wishes, what I want to add, what elements I want to infuse into it, and, what experiences I want to help create for you. And I have some amazing, fun stuff coming up, but again, it's hard not to talk about it, but we're going to save it for next week. Okay, today's episode. Oh my goodness. Do you ever just start a conversation with somebody and want to just swim around in their brain? Well, you will. You will with today's guest. He is so knowledgeable on our topic and so well diversified in his field of expertise, which really makes him the perfect complement for me today. Now, back in early spring, I came up with the idea of having something for us that was kind of like that after hours type segment, while this podcast is all about bridging our witchcraft practices into our work, jobs, and corporate world, I wanted to add something that was just for us after work. So I came up with this, 5 to 9-ish phase, this after hours segment, and first brought in the Spellbound Spirits. Now, so far we have had 3 segments to it with the new moon cocktails, waxing moon cocktails, and then last month was the full moon cocktail episode. So with this, I'm taking herbs that complement the energy of each of the moon phases and mixing them into cocktails that we can make after hours, right? After a long day at the office, on the job, and at work. So my format is to make 3 cocktails, but then offer one recipe for a mocktail in each episode, right? Not everybody drinks. And even if you do drink, you just might not be in the mood nor want to add alcohol, one evening, but still want to use the energy of the ingredients. So there is one more option. And again, I did start this project back in April, so it's months in the making, but we are now ready, and it just happens to be matching up with my 100th episode. So I think it was just all meant to be. This is right when it was supposed to happen. So that third option, my friends, the third option to our after hours wind down is using hemp-infused gummies to relax. You might hear this as microdosing. You may hear them called Delta 9 gummies, but this alternative has really taken off, and I am super excited to have it be a part of Witchy Work Wishes and the arsenal of options that I get to offer you guys. So I personally started on a smaller level just because I feel it gives you more control. Start with one gummy and see how you feel, right? You may need two at a time. Maybe you need three. Or you know what? Maybe you only need half of one to use, in whatever form of microdosing that fits your specific needs, your specific body. So you're going to hear my guest mention to start at a low dose and then play around with what works for you. So my gummies, the Witchy Work Witches gummies, are called Moon Phase, and I have two options right now with the launch of this line. First one is New Moon, which is a lemon gummy that inspires new beginnings and fresh starts. And then I also have a Full Moon gummy, which is going to be the mixed berry version that inspires celebration, joy, and gratitude. Both are Delta 9 gummies that have 5 milligrams of THC and a little under 2 milligrams of CBD in each gummy. It's a nice little hit and a great alternative to a glass of wine or, whatever your cocktail is in that after work phase of your day. Now, my gummies are all natural, they are vegan, and each individual gummy is going to consistently have the same ingredients and levels in it. The other thing my gummies have is the fast acting component to them. You are not waiting an hour and a half for the ingredients to kick in. It is also water soluble, and that portion of the manufacturing process allows the Moonface gummies to talk directly to our bodies like right away, like within 15 minutes. So you will hear my guest talk about this in the interview and how this fast acting component prevents overconsumption and really is a cleaner form of an edible, for our bodies to digest. So this is something specifically with his company that they use in their manufacturing process that was really, really important to me. Now, bottom line, and you're going to hear him say it, is to start low and go slow. You will find your sweet spot with the gummies. And as you get used to how they talk and work with your own personal body, you're going to be able to regulate what dose you personally need. All right, so with that, let's join the recording with my guest, Kaylin from Splash Nano, which is a manufacturing company that made my Moon Phase gummies.
All right, well, I'm so excited to introduce today's guest who is going to help me navigate the complex world. Or I think it's complex, it's just not the language I speak. But Caitlin, I would love for you to say hello to everybody and let them know where they can reach out and find you online.
Sure. Thanks for the introduction, Charlene. I'm super happy to be here with you. My name's Kalen Baird. I'm the formulator for Splash Nano. Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn under Kalen Baird or go to splashnano.com and you can reach out there.
Wonderful. And what I'll do is I'll make sure I circle back with you and I have those actually in the show notes so people don't have to like write it down real fast as they're listening to this.
Sounds good.
Okay, so today's topic. Oh my goodness. First of all, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule. I know how busy you are, only because you've helped me with my own project here with the Moon Phase gummies. But what is Delta 9? If I think there's going to be a lot of people who aren't super familiar with it. First of all, what is it and how does it potentially differ from other cannabinoids like CBD or Delta 8?
Sure. Yeah, no, it's a good question. I think people need to know that the cannabis plant,
Hmm.
Cannabis sativa, is kind of the master genus and species of both hemp and marijuana. And Delta 9 is sort of one of the active fatty components that the plant makes, which is psychoactive, right? Where many of the other
Okay.
naturally occurring cannabinoids that you might hear of are actually not psychoactive. So how it differs from things like CBD.
Hmm.
So interestingly enough, CBD and THC have the same number of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen atoms, right? And their
Okay.
molecular structure, they have the same molecular weight, but they are rearranged a little differently. And that's interesting because one is completely psychoactive and the other one is completely not psychoactive. So
And
just to show
when
how
yeah,
subtle
when you
those
say they're
differences.
arranged, do you mean like naturally, just their molecules are arranged differently? And
The shape, the like geometry. If you were to,
ah,
turn it into a three-dimensional diagram, you'd find some carbons over here, and it's a very subtle difference, really. But they actually are the same molecules, just shaped differently.
Okay. Okay. I'm with you.
So, our receptors are three-dimensional, and so when these molecules bind and like a lock and a key to a receptor, one type of receptor is better at accepting, for the sake of this conversation, better at accepting THC, and another type of receptor better at CBD. And those are commonly known
Oh.
as CB1 and CB2 receptors. CB1 having a stronger affinity for delta 9 THC, and CB2
Mm-hmm.
having a stronger affinity for CBD. So that's obviously oversimplification, but
But I think for somebody who is new to this arena, and that we're just not familiar with it, that's a great way to break it down. So I appreciate you explaining it that way.
yeah, and I wanted to just cover delta 8 since you mentioned it.
Yeah. What
Delta
is that?
8 Delta 8 it can occur naturally in the plant, but it's normally made through a chemical conversion process. And what the Delta 8 and the Delta 9 refer to, this is kind of for all the nerds out there,
Yeah.
is it's the position of the double bond in the ring of
Oh.
the benzyl ring in the molecule will have the double bond in the ninth carbon versus the eighth carbon. And it's actually the same molecule, just a different bond structure. Now we're taking it kind of one more element of complexity later, and it's called an isomer, right? So Delta 8 was honestly created and is even talked about as a workaround to THC in the
Mm.
barbell. And
Oh.
it's kind of known as the weed light. It's not nearly as psychoactive as THC on a milligram per milligram basis. And we
Hmm.
might just have a lower binding affinity to that psychoactive receptor.
So what actually makes the Delta 9 gummies like unique compared to other cannabis edibles like that are on the market today?
Well, a couple kind of obvious things and maybe a couple not so obvious things. So,
Hmm.
first of all, the gummies that we came up with together are all natural. They're vegan and they're very consistent, right? So that's something that, we have a lot of expertise in manufacturing regulated medicated products and testing them
Hmm.
within tight tolerances in the regulated markets. And so we use the same exact kind of methodology to make sure that every piece has the same amount of medication in it. Seems like it should
Hmm.
be an obvious, but there's a lot of people that can make gummies out there by just throwing oil in something, and they're not great at chemistry or math or QC or validation. The other thing
Sure.
that's unique is we use our proprietary emulsion to make the cannabis more water soluble than fat soluble, which we know fats and waters don't mix, and gummies are
Right.
water. So it's important to get that into an intermediate matrix that can dissolve in the gummy so that every corner of the batch has the same amount of medication in it versus trying to stir oil into water and hoping that it was going to homogenize completely. So those are
So
kind of
that's
interesting
interesting.
features.
Yeah. We just said it interesting at the same time. Yes, it is. That's really interesting.
Thanks.
Jinx. That's awesome. Okay, so that kind of walks us right into the other area. Like, how are the Delta 9 gummies made? Like, what should consumers know about the manufacturing process?
I I think consumers, can kind of look less on the manufacturing process itself because there's a variety of different ways to manufacture them. Just be
Hmm.
looking for reputable companies that can produce a third-party certificate of analysis that
Mm.
shows all of the, other contaminants that could possibly be in there, from
Okay.
both the food supply chain and the cannabis supply chain. So what common things that we look for are pesticides, heavy metals, mycotoxins, residual solvents coming from extraction processes that are left
Hmm.
aren't removed. We also look at foreign materials. We look at other microbial contaminants, and then most importantly, is that the potency is accurate and that it's within an acceptable variance of the label's claim. We shoot for a tolerance of no more than 10% plus or minus. So that means a
Hmm.
5 gummy would have no less than 4.5 milligrams and no greater than 5.5. And you have to understand that the reason why we give it such a tolerance is because, well, one, I mean, they're food products and they can vary, from piece to piece. But more
Yeah,
importantly, and that's mostly for operators that don't have great QC, but it's
sure.
also for just giving the lab a little bit of room, a little bit of wiggle room, because their instruments have measurements of uncertainty that can fluctuate. You know, you test the same gummy twice, you're going to get two different results. It's not
For
an
sure.
empirical truth. It's a
Right.
best guess measurement.
Well, and that goes back to the consistency that you were talking about. You're just not going to get probably across the board for every, gummy that you're going to purchase, from who knows where or for what, whoever's mixing it. Like at least we know with this method, there's consistency with each gummy, again, within that
Correct.
range. All right. Well, what do you think, like for somebody who hasn't done this before, maybe like, what do you think the main benefits are that users are going to seek when consuming a Delta 9 gummy? Like, what do you think the main
Well,
benefits are?
it's a great question. I mean, a couple different things, right? So we consider these to be adult use products. So
Sure.
they're not meant for children, right? And these are meant to be somewhat intoxicating, right? And we won't want to go into
Hmm.
how do we define intoxicating, right? Because I know
Right.
people can take, just a preface to that is I know people that can take 50 milligrams of THC and feel nothing. I know people that take 2 milligrams of THC and are like, feel like they took acid. So, that's rare, right? But it can happen. And so I think one of the benefits is for people to find a way to use these products to offset other lifestyle vices, whether that be
Hmm.
taking Ambien for sleep or that be substituting that glass of red wine that's got 400 calories in it, right? Um,
Seriously. Yeah.
and no hangovers. And it's actually, I mean, THC has a lot of positive downstream impacts on the endocannabinoid system that we touched on a little earlier with those CB1 and 2 receptors. But
Hmm.
and so we're still finding out things that it can do. But I think
Yeah.
at the most surface level, like let it be a replacement for your sleeping pill, let it be a replacement for your glass of red wine.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. You mentioned the glass of red wine. I was just talking with somebody about. I'm heading back up to the mountains, and I'm prone to altitude sickness. So, for me, drinking up in the mountains that are, you're up at above 9,000 feet, the alcohol really just exaggerates that dehydration, which exaggerates being, the altitude sickness that can come on. So, there's other forms that maybe you do want to do when you're up there on vacation or, relaxing that isn't going to be great for red wine or alcohol
Oh,
in
it's
general.
wonderful. I mean, I think as an athlete, I've less and less the more endurance stuff that I do, whether I go mountain biking in the backcountry or
Hmm.
paragliding. Alcohol just like doesn't feel great, right? After you're dehydrated and
Yeah.
you're working out, and it's not a great recovery way to kind of imbibe with your friends without getting completely, just blown out. So
Sure. Yeah.
I, I prefer THC because it's a simple, small molecule. It doesn't produce any biological harm on on your neurons or any other systems.
Hmm.
There's no evidence that it destroys cells or interferes with really any, uh, you know, cellular function. If
Hmm.
anything, it improves cellular function. So I treat it as a very like soft core way of replacing a vice and still having a good time.
Okay, so that leads me right in. You're walking me right through this, which is amazing. Like, how do Delta 9 gummies affect the body and mind then? Like, what if it was my first time using it, what should I expect to or potentially expect to feel?
So
Or is it hard?
yeah, it's no. I'm just trying to figure out what what
Yeah, no.
where to enter from. So
Yeah.
so I think the industry has chosen sort of artificial denominations of product dosing that
Hmm.
are have become industry standard. So we've defined a microdose as 2.5 milligrams of THC, kind of a medium, middle of the road as 5 milligrams, and the state maximum for Delta 9 is 10 milligrams per serving. And
Hmm.
that kind of is the one size fits none.
Hmm.
I think
Yeah.
I think most people that I talk to that are never tried cannabis find about a 2.5 to 5 milligram dose sufficient.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, Whereas you can build a tolerance up pretty quickly, and then that's why the 10 milligram doses exist. And then for
Yeah.
the rare neuro atypical people out there, they need 20, 50, 100 milligrams. It's not, definitely don't recommend anybody first starting out to go there, but you'll
Yeah.
find the subset of the population. And, these are mostly dispensary goers, right? These are people who
Sure.
cannabis is solving some serious chronic, health issue, and it's not just a
Yeah.
recreational, pick me up. So
Right,
how
right.
does it affect the body, right? So delta
Yeah.
9 binds, and all cannabinoids bind to what we call G-coupled protein receptors,
Okay.
and they're ubiquitous through our body. They signal almost every function, neurologically and otherwise that our body goes through. They're very common, and so it's activating a signaling system that's ancient and that's old. The majority of that system is called the endocannabinoid system. And it
Okay.
was actually discovered in medical journals and has been talked about for a very long time, way longer than we've had even marijuana policy. And so that should lead you into the fact that this stuff has worked in our bodies. It's my hypothesis that we've evolved for hundreds of thousands, if not millions of years, to have these type of receptors to work with these molecules. I'm going to take it one step further.
Ah,
So
okay. Okay. Yep.
so we call it the endocannabinoid system. Endo meaning endogenous, right?
Okay.
Meaning that our body has it, we're born with it, and it regulates a bunch of functions, from everything from inflammation, pain, and even like body temperature regulation. And so our bodies make two compounds, that more, but two specific ones that I'm going to use for this example.
Hmm.
The first one is called 2-AG, and it stands for 2-arachidinoyl glycerol, and that is the structural analog of CBD that is made by a plant, which
Ah,
would be called an exogenous cannabinoid, or meaning made outside the body. And
okay.
then there's another molecule that our body makes called AEA. Also, the chemical name is arachidinoyl ethanoalamine, and it's commonly referred to in ancient text as anandamide, and that's a Sanskrit word meaning bliss, and that's the
Oh,
THC. Yeah, it's a fun kind of historical, ethno-pharmacological kind of
I
root.
love that you circled that in. Love it.
Yeah, so our body makes these endocannabinoids that modulate different functions like pain and inflammation, like I mentioned. And so we have various degrees of health in terms of how our endocannabinoid system is functioning. And so you can treat these THC and CBD supplements that come from outside the body as supplements to realign the endocannabinoid system if you're deficient. And that's why, CBD can
Oh,
help with seizures, right? Because it's a neuromodulator. And
sure.
so it would one could draw or deduce a conclusion that kids that have, serious epilepsy or other seizure disorders could be
Hmm.
deficient in natural neuromodulators. That's why CBD immediately can correct a grand mal seizure. So pretty fascinating.
Immediately. I mean, honestly, immediately, it literally immediately talks to your body.
Yeah. So
That's
it
crazy.
does. I mean, you can see videos of these kids that, they've been given a syringe of CBD oil underneath their tongue, and they're literally having a seizure, and they stopped immediately. I mean, that's how CBD got popularized by really Charlotte's Web, uh,
Hmm.
and Charlotte Figi, the patient, because the results were so profound, right? And then that's how Epidiolex came to be made into a like pharmaceutical drug approved by the FDA for a very
Hmm.
a very narrow symptom called Lennox-Dravet syndrome, which is a very rare type of seizure disorder. So
Gotcha.
that's big pharma for you, but cool.
What your knowledge on this is just amazing. It's just so perfect that you're sure. Thank you so much for doing this with me today. There's no way I could have been able to adequately do this. What
Or
about like the legality of cannabis products? I know that's going to vary by region. I have listeners. My base is definitely the United States, but that's only about 70% of my listeners. I've got people in Australia, in France. There it's worldwide as far as my podcast base. But
sure.
do you know, at least for the United States, legally what how it might vary by region?
Yeah, so like in order to understand the legality of it, we have to go back in time a little bit. So forgive
Hmm.
another long-winded, um,
It's okay.
narrative, but
Yeah.
like marijuana, which is kind of the really the big thing that everybody's has gone to jail for in the past,
Hmm.
was actually technically legal and part of the U.S. pharmacopoeia prior to, I believe, 1969, when it got put on the Controlled Substances Act. And this was during kind of the Vietnam War era,
Hmm.
where Reagan policy that just say no kind of
Yep.
vilified a lot of psychedelics, including LSD, including psilocybin, including marijuana, and they became Schedule One drugs, right? Which is like, and their current status, by the way, at the federal level is still maintained as a Schedule One drug. There's no medicinal benefit, and there's a high potential for abuse, which we know
Gotcha.
like psychedelics aren't inherently addictive. They're not the mechanism, whereas opiates are
Sure.
lower on the list, and made
Right.
into things like Oxycontin, which we now have an opiate epidemic.
Yeah.
So
Highly
currently,
abused.
right. So currently, marijuana. This is I'm saying it specifically because that's the legal term. So
Hmm.
marijuana, not cannabis, is a Schedule One drug, and because of the recent Farm Bill, which the last version of it in 2018 basically legalized hemp, and so then there became a different player, right, in the system, and
Hmm.
the government said if it's under 0.3% THC, it's essentially a t-shirt, right? And so
Ah, what
so
was that
you have
again?
this
How much was it?
0.3%, which means 3 milligrams per gram in this flower, right? So if you're growing
Gotcha.
this biomass, then if it tests out at under 0.3%, it's legal hemp. If it's over 0.3%, you go to jail for 25 years. Right. So
Right, right,
still
right.
still bad policy, really. I mean, yeah, but it was really to stimulate the agricultural sector of fiber and grain and feed. And so they knew that the plant produces THC, so they had to set a threshold in order for people to be able to feel comfortable growing these crops and not go to jail.
Hmm. Hmm.
What happened with that is the way that they wrote the law, it effectively legalized, you know, products that are under 0.3%. And
Hmm.
gummies, so remember I mentioned that 3 milligrams per gram.
Yeah.
This is kind of it's still a noodle scratcher for people. I don't understand why. But like if we had, for all those math listeners out there, if we had a 3 gram gummy, how many milligrams do you think we could put in there and still be legal? Right? So it'd be three times three would be 9 milligrams. And
Yeah.
so that would be right at the 0.3% threshold. So you could
Gotcha.
see how you had a 5 gram gummy, you could put up to 15 milligrams of THC in it. Now,
There it is.
obviously,
Yeah.
was, unintentional, but the government's now working to revise the farm bill and kind of get their heads wrapped around this. They also didn't realize that
Hmm.
smart chemists out there would be creating products like Delta 8 THC and Delta 10
Hmm.
THC and HHC and all these other THCP, all these other analogs that would sort of break the sniff test of the 0.3% delta 9 THC.
Sure.
So that's kind of how we created all of these isomers and other chain lengths and all these other things that are analogs. Now, according to the Controlled Substances Act, it's illegal to create an analog of a Schedule One drug. And then there's all this other stuff, issues and nuances that are a little too complex even for the regulators to understand. So right now, there's basically no enforcement going on for some of this other workarounds, right? What they call the loopholes.
Yeah.
But we actually make products under the hemp guidelines that strictly adhere to Delta 9 THC, no isomers, no synthetics, under 0.3%. And we feel
Hmm.
that expert legal opinion says that we're in full compliance with the Farm Bill. In fact, California and other states have enacted laws to implement quality control standards that have per package limitations, per serving limitations, accurate labeling guidelines. So they're kind of embracing the cat out of the bag nature that the hemp
Hmm.
industry run with. And we're trying to promote good standards, good practices, third party validation. And that is definitely few and far between on the hemp side of things for now. But
Yeah.
we're actively promoting regulation that would require manufacturers to really follow the same guidelines as the regulated marijuana and other pharmaceutical products.
Sure. Oh my gosh, that's a lot
I know.
to
I'm sorry.
that's a lot to stay. No,
It's five
no, I mean,
minutes.
no, no. It's good. This is what I was looking for, in this interview with you was the educational side of it. But that's a lot for you as a business to have to stay up on. This is like you've got to be current on all this. That's. That's a
Right.
lot.
So we operate the marijuana side of the business and we have a state license for that. And then,
Hmm.
that obviously allows us a little bit more latitude with product development. And
Sure.
then we can only sell within the California system, buy within the California system. So it's
Yeah.
complicated but straightforward enough. Then you have hemp where we're monitoring every state's law change in terms of
Hmm.
symbol needs to be on the package, what milligram limits there are, where it can come from,
Yes.
all the registrations, how do so it's like the hemp side is easier in some ways for folks to, develop products, but it's
Hmm.
it's ship them, in the mail, but then you've got to have this expert team that's following all of the compliance
Seriously. Yeah.
federal law, which is superseding everything, and it's a lot, right?
It's a lot. Yeah. Okay, so that walks me right into the next one. I was wondering how or if you have seen the market for the Delta 9 gummies kind of evolve over the past couple of years with all these changes. Are there any big trends that are happening right now with it?
It's a great question. So look, in 2016, it was
Hmm.
pretty much it was a low bar for for quality. It was just who has medication and gummy, don't want to smoke, like very caveman like, right? It
Right.
was like I don't want to smoke, I want to eat this edible. And the edibles were like mystery gummies. It was like, some of them got you like not high at all, and then some of them took you to
Knocked you
the
out.
moon. So I think the biggest innovation that we've seen in the edible space and that we've really been a part of pioneering would have been that
Hmm.
fast acting technology at Splash Nano, where
Yeah.
we turn it into a nano emulsion where it's water soluble and the particle size is so small that it evenly disperses both in the matrix and in your body. And so you're going to get a faster onset. So you're going to notice the effects of an edible in 15 minutes versus in 60 minutes. And so that prevents
Yes.
overconsumption and it's just a little bit cleaner for your body to digest. And so that's our core technology. And we put it in all of our gummies so that the
Love it.
experience is better across the board. So that being the biggest trend is consistency, homogeneity, and fast acting. Now we're
Hmm.
seeing the inclusion of minor cannabinoids, things like CBN for sleep, CBG for pain,
Hmm.
CBD for inflammation, and then nutraceutical inclusions. We're seeing people will start blending the botanical wellness space with the cannabinoid wellness space. So you see ingredients like passion flower, lemon balm, chamomile, things like that start
Yes.
its way into our sector. And I think the two biggest need states, we'll call them,
Hmm.
is
Hmm.
going to be sleep and pain, right? Most people use cannabis I think sleep being number one and pain probably
Hmm.
being a close number two. Or, I mean, you'll see energy, you'll see focus, you'll see arousal, you'll
Hmm.
see some other, kind of need states because cannabis is such an adaptogenic molecule that it can work on different systems. It's very, we'll call it promiscuous in the
Hmm.
body,
That's a good
binding
word. Yeah.
yeah, it's binding to all these G-coupled protein receptors in various ways. And same thing with all the different minor constituents, or what we call phytocannabinoids, or terpenes and other molecules that have therapeutic effect. Because the cannabis plant makes over 400 different compounds that are unique, but also are found in other things like hops and lemongrass and basil and thyme and lavender. You're seeing
Yeah.
all of these. It's probably the most biologically diverse plants that creates the most medicinal compounds like in it and punches way out of its weight class when it comes to that.
Well, okay, so with that, do you think there are some common or typical misconceptions about Delta 9 gummies that you've seen?
I think across the board people are a little hesitant. The war on drugs did a number on the American psyche and the
Yeah.
world psyche when it comes to the paranoia about this plant. And I think
Hmm.
gummies help denature a little bit of the stigma around consumption because it's not lighting up a joint. It's not
Yes.
putting a bong together. It's not, smoking something. It's not inherently the same risk that that combustion would
Hmm.
give you in an inhalable format. And so there's really no risk. And I think that people are really like that's why gummies make up over, 80% of the edible category, and they're
Yeah.
almost on par or outpaced inhalables in dispensaries right now because people realize that now there's a better way they can get their medication without
Right.
creating some bodily harm. My
Yes.
claim, my famous statement self-proclaimed famous statement
Okay.
is if somebody wants to look into cannabis for wellness, they're likely not going to pick up a smoking habit to do so. And
Agree.
I think that the beverage industry is going to be, one more step down the road towards normalization because everybody imbibes alcohol so freely. And so
Hmm.
switching over to cannabis as a social form factor is going to really, it's already bringing down the walls.
Love that. That's just I can personally relate to that. Growing up, as a kid in the 70s, high school in the 80s, that the say no to drugs, that was a big campaign,
Oh
and
yeah.
didn't mean I didn't do them. It didn't mean I didn't have fun in the 80s or have my playtime, but it's impactful and that stuff lasts. And when you have big, huge marketing campaigns, I think they've done really good on smoking cigarettes. Whatever the campaign is that's happened over the past 20 years as far as cigarette smoking, it has had a huge impact in the United States. I see it when I travel outside of the United States where it's just more common, but
Yeah.
it's smoke matters
Well,
to your lungs.
so,
It's
so that was
damaging.
a lot of, no, totally. And that was a lot of warnings on the packaging as well as
Hmm.
taxation. So the excise tax actually
Yeah.
helps disincentivize consumption
Hmm.
because as it becomes a larger part of someone's purchasing power, they call that the price inelasticity of demand, right? Where you
Hmm.
have a higher cost and so therefore it deters use. And so
Yeah.
actually I thought that, we have a big problem in the cannabis marijuana industry where flower is being overstated in terms of its potency because there's a
Hmm.
perceived sort of bang for your buck that you can
Hmm.
get, and it's kind of gotten out of control in California, where you can't sell flower unless it's over 30%, which we all know that there's very few flower that tests over 30% THC. And so this whole idea that the weed now is stronger than your grandma's weed, and although that's largely true to some extent due to selective breeding and whatnot, uh,
Hmm.
the lab side of the testing is very wrong, and there's almost everybody has to play the game. And so I actually think that if you levied an excise tax on the actual potency of smokable products,
Ah,
you'd see sort of more equilibrium, I guess, in the market in terms of people not necessarily wanting to pay extra, right?
sure.
And so you'd see the real value of what things are actually, what the real potencies are across the board. Because at this point, we have no idea what the real potency of any flower on any shelf is. It's all kind of been manipulated.
Well, okay, so what if again, if somebody is new to this, one thing that I loved as far as your guidance with the two products that I'm launching is starting at that 5 milligram range so that it isn't, you can cut it in half if you want, you can double, you can take two if you want. It lets
Right.
the user ease into and understand how this affects their body and just start working with it, which is nice. But
It's also a
what am I,
controlled dose experience. Like you can
right?
even choose, how much you take, and the beverages are even more so, right? Because you can just sip
Mm-hmm.
few sips and wait. Whereas like a gummy, yeah, sure, you can definitely split it into pieces, but
Yeah.
that's fine. But it's also no one's inflating the potency of edibles because we can only
Mm-hmm.
have 100 milligrams in a package and 10 per serving, and so we just want to be accurate, right? Like whereas the
Sure.
flower, they're trying to get as much juice, out of the squeeze.
Right, right. Oh, what do you think about future stuff with Delta 9? Where do you think the gummies are heading?
Oh man, gummies. There's definitely going to be a lot of options in the space. I think it's
Mm-hmm.
critical that people work with brands that they know they can trust, that they know who's
Mm-hmm.
making this stuff. And I think, there's a lot of really great marketing people that are trying to make a quick buck that have set up,
Mm,
internet sites and, are trying to get people as high as possible. I think, finding good brands is definitely the starting point, and then
sure.
just keep following along. I'm sure, our partnership will allow you to stay ahead of the curve and just continue to refine what your customers are telling you and turn that
Mm-hmm.
into actionable product. And you kind of have an opportunity to be one of the better actors out there to
Yay.
also try new stuff and try and be innovative.
Right. I always like to ask something personal. So do you have any personal story or experience related to a Delta 9 gummy or something that has a significant impact on you and why you're in this industry or just kind of in general?
Yeah, so I mean, originally my background was in cultivation.
Hmm.
Um, part of that was just being young and knowing that this wasn't a bad thing to do and it was a great way to make
Yeah.
a living. But I knew I was helping people. I knew that there was a really large medicinal community that benefited from cannabis, and
Yeah.
so and even I would say benefit and wellness, even just being happy is wellness, right?
Yeah.
So
Sure.
so we undervalue that sometimes. We think we have to have a chronic illness to enjoy some of these things to make us feel
Hmm.
better. And
Yeah.
so I'm here for that. But also, like, I had a couple serious family members, or close family members and friends with serious illnesses. And
Hmm.
so we started making cannabis creams, cannabis capsules, and other sort of medicinal form factors. And we were able to get great results in their healing journeys. And that kind of led me to cross over from, the cultivation side of things into
Hmm.
product development and learn how to you know, have better manufacturing practices and, bring the science, mind that I have into this space and add value to the people who need this medicine. And one of our most popular medicinal form factors are suppositories, which in
Oh,
Europe,
really? Yeah.
yeah, yeah, in like Europe, it's actually a very, common form factor. In America, people are a little uneasy about it, but you go to Europe, you
Yeah.
get a headache, they're going to give you a suppository. You're like, wait, that's the other end,
It is.
but there's
But if somebody is
medicinal.
nauseous, that's a great alternative.
Well, people have to understand that there's like the pharmacology of digesting compounds can be very tricky and complex for product developers to design experiences around because you
Mm.
have the GI interaction, you have liver enzymes that
Yes.
are glycosylating molecules and turning them into other things. Whereas when you have like a rectal or vaginal absorption route, you're bypassing the first pass metabolism, so you're getting a,
Yes.
a totally different experience. Like if you took a 50 milligram suppository, you wouldn't feel nearly the amount of psychoactivity that you get out of an oral edible. And not to go too down the rabbit hole, pun
Yeah.
intended,
Yeah.
um,
Yes.
but that form factor allows for patients that are dealing with cancer, dealing with nausea, dealing with chronic
Yes.
pain, to be able to get THC into their body and not get a psychoactive dose, but be able to get the relief. And so that's kind of my personal reason for doing this. Obviously, you have to do well to do good. And
Mm,
so,
you do.
but we've always been a little puritanical about staying in the wellness space and really helping patients from the get-go. So,
Well, Kaylin, I think beautiful things can develop when you are personally vested. And if it's a family member, which I'm sorry you had to go through that, but that's when it's in the purest form of innovation and just how do we what's the solution? There's got to be a way to fix this. So
right.
one, I'm sorry you went through it, but that's a beautiful way to start something.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, look, we're all, dealing with I guess the prognosis of being alive. And so there's stuff that's going to come up and
Hmm.
these plant medicines have been given to us and gifted. And I treat it like I'm a steward of the plant and not in like a super wishy-washy way, but
Yeah,
we have the techniques and the tools and the pharmaceutical science to help standardize some of this plant medicine so that people can actually get a repeatable and safe experience. And I think that
yeah.
that's kind of the purpose that I've been put here for is to be a good steward, and I think people
Mm.
can benefit from that.
Amazing. Well, I appreciate you sharing the personal side of it. I think that's a great story.
No worries.
Well, what about any final words of advice you would give maybe to somebody who is trying Delta 9 gummies for the first time?
Yeah. So my
Have fun.
standard, yeah, no, for sure. My standard pitch is like more on the safety side of things, right? Not
Yeah,
on the maximization side. So
sure.
if you're experienced, do your thing. I'm not here to tell you what is right for your dose, but the one thing I'll say is start low and go slow.
Hmm.
You can always add more. You can't take any away. Once you get, having a bad experience is not worth it. Taking too much is not worth it.
Right.
Start with that 2.5. I mean, we even make products that, are down to 1 milligram.
Hmm.
Um, start low, go slow, wait 15 minutes to 1 hour if it's your first time. Really see that, if you've waited an hour and you don't feel anything, by all means, start incrementally adding more dosage. But
Sure.
it's really not worth it if you have a bad experience, it's very uncomfortable. You don't need to
Mhm.
call the police on yourself. You don't need to go to the hospital. You just need to go to sleep. Um,
Yes.
I mean, assuming that, you get some steps in, I think it's important for people to figure out what their dose is so that they
Hmm.
know what to look for, and then look for products that are standardized correctly, that are accurate, that are third party tested, and then you can kind of
Yes.
count. But the worst thing is just to have a bad experience.
Okay, so start slow. Go slow.
Start low and go slow.
Start low and go slow. Okay, there's the pitch. Well, I
That was
can
the
say
pitch.
my whole journey with working with you and the company, it's been absolutely amazing. I am heading down to pick up the boxes. So I've got my first two batches, and the next two, so with you, I've got the moon phase, full moon and new moon, and I'm really excited to do the dark moon and just kind of the overall boo-boos. I guess I can't really say pain, right? It's got to be boo-boos and owies or something. But I've
Yeah,
I've
CB1
enjoyed.
receptor activation,
Yes,
Yeah,
we're gonna come up with something perfect for it. But for the first two, out of the gate, my whole experience with you and your company, it's just been amazing, and I'm so thankful you were able to take. Yeah. Oh, good. Yeah, take time today though with me and the listeners because I would not have done even 1/16 of what what you did today. I don't have the
Oh,
knowledge base, so I appreciate
thanks,
it.
Shirley. Yeah, it's a pleasure being here, and for all the people out there that are curious, just we can do more content, and we should put out some more an evolving series so that if people want to learn
Hmm.
more, then we can kind of start really unpacking all the nuances. But I think we did a great job together, and I'm so
Good.
excited for the world to experience these products.
I'm so excited too. And Kaylin, one more time, can you remind the listeners where they can reach out to you or find you online?
Sure. Yeah. You can find me on LinkedIn, Kaylin
Hmm.
Baird. That's Kalon, last name Baird. You can check out our website, splashnano.com. And yeah, if you want to, you can message me through the website if you really have an inquiry about
Sure.
product manufacturing or just further knowledge or any of these topics.
All right, Kaylin, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate your time. And for everybody else, if you want to stay tuned, I do have a quick little poem and, of course, the moon update to add in. But for now, thank you, Kaylin. Thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
Well, first, I definitely want to say a very big thank you to Kaylin again for joining me today and talking about Delta 9 and helping me and you navigate the edible world. I do have his contact information listed in the show notes too, in case you want to reach out or certainly learn more about his company. Now, for my poem, this was a fun one to create, and it goes. In a world of colors soft and bright, a single gummy takes its flight. A moon-faced gummy is a whisper sweet and melts on the tongue like a gentle treat. It dances through the twilight haze, bringing calm to our busy days. A mellow wave, a soft embrace that eases us to a tranquil place. As the stars above begin to glow, our worries fade in a peaceful flow. Each breath is light, each thought is clear, as the moon-faced gummy draws us near. And in this moment, all is still. A simple joy, a gentle thrill, a friendly touch, a fleeting grace, our moon-faced gummy and our witchy space. All right, my friends, well, we just had our September new moon, and right now it's game time. Right? The moon is waxing. It is getting stronger and brighter, and that cues our energy to be just the same, right? And mirror her. This is the time to focus on activities that involve growth, attraction, and manifestation. So if you are looking for an area to focus on, I have 3 suggestions. First one is manifestation rituals. right? The waxing moon is an ideal time for setting intentions and performing rituals to attract what you desire, whether it is love, prosperity, new opportunities, new job opportunities, new work stuff. This is the time to focus on what you want to bring into your life. Create a vision board, write down intentions, or perform a candle ritual, maybe, right? With the colors corresponding to your goals. Second one would be charging and creating talismans. As the moon's energy increases, it's a powerful time to charge our crystals, amulets, or talismans with the energy of growth and expansion. We can place these items under the moonlight to absorb the waxing moon's energies, imbuing them with the power to aid in achieving our personal goals. And then the other area we can focus on, another good suggestion would be using the waxing moon for planting and growth magic. So this time, it's all about growth and fertility. So it makes it a really good or ideal time for planting seeds, both literally and metaphorically. But we can plant herbs or flowers in our garden, infuse them with intentions for health, abundance, or even protection. But this is a good time for starting something new. A new project, a new venture, a new relationship, as the energy of the waxing moon supports development and progress. All right, I can barely stand it. I can barely wait for next week. And if you follow me on social media, you might already have a couple of hints of what is going to be going on, what is happening. Again, it is the big 100th episode, and I am going to be giving some things away and celebrating and being thankful. Thanking you. Yes, you, for being a part of the Witchy Work Wishes family, for supporting me, and for being a loyal listener. I'm going to say it now. I will say it again next week that I personally want to extend my heartfelt thanks for you, for your continued support and loyalty to my podcast. Your presence means the world to me, and knowing that you choose to spend your valuable time with me is truly humbling. It's listeners like you who inspire me to keep creating and sharing and exploring the topics that we love. Your feedback, enthusiasm, and dedication have been a driving force behind my journey, and I couldn't do it without you. So thank you. Thank you for being a part of this community and for making this podcast what it is today. I am incredibly grateful for your support, and I look forward to continuing this journey together. I hope you have an amazing week and weekend, and I'll talk with you on the big 100th episode next week. Thank you for joining me today at Witchy Work Wishes, a place to find your weekly inspiration for bringing your personal witchcraft practice into your business, work, and office. For more information and additional content, please visit me online at witchyworkwishes.com. If you want to send me a personal note, please email me at info@witchyworkwishes.com. And of course, you can follow me on Instagram and Facebook. Just search for Witchy Work Wishes.